So I'm a big fan of Shure microphones, especially the SM series. SM58, one of my most recommended microphones, and the 57 too. This one, however, has made me pause. This is the Shure SM4, released almost 2 years ago in August of 2024, and a microphone that I haven't noticed too much since it launched. Even online, outside of the launch reviews, it's kind of quiet. Actually, it's dead quiet. So is this thing a swing and a miss from Shure? And if so, why? Well, I have a couple ideas. So if you've looked into this microphone, you'll know that it was oddly released in two varieties. One without the shock mount and pop filter, and one with. Now obviously, I got the one with. As for the build quality, this thing is kind of expected from a company like Shure. It's a great quality of materials, it's great engineering and design, and it's solid. This shouldn't be much of a surprise though. Shure isn't known for releasing cheaply built products. Even their cheapest SM series are still built like tanks. This thing also uses Shure's dual diaphragm tech, which is pretty cool as it's supposed to reduce plosives, handling, and proximity. Now this pop shield is one of the better ones I've used, though I've noticed some of my Ps are getting through. But I also don't like that it only attaches via magnet to one other part of the shock mount. You can't move it around, it's only in front. Also, that pop filter, it is rather compact in making the whole kit kind of look unassuming, and it's what Shure is calling camera ready, which I guess that's a thing. Other than that though, it is kind of business as usual for all Shure mics. Again, all expected. Now this is kind of where things start to get a bit dicey. This isn't a simple entry into a market where competition is slagging and falling behind. This is probably the most competitive market in all of audio. From $100 to $500, you can get such mics as the NT1 on the low end, all the way up to the OC16 from Austrian Audio. In between, you have the LCT 240 and 440 from Lewitt, not to mention the Lewitt Ray, which is kind of its own category. Then you have the SC2200. The AKG P series, as well as their entry-level C series with the C114 and 214. You have Aston, you have Audio-Technica, I can keep going. And this thing plopped right in the middle of it all. That's some tough competition for sure. Now, don't get me wrong. If there was any company that I could see doing this, it would be Rode or Shure. But here's a bit of the issue. If you're planning on being a disruptor to a large portion of the market, which Shure seem to be trying to do, well, you've got to do two things, and you've got to do them very well. First is you have to have an understanding of who you're up against and create your product accordingly. You see, as a disruptor, you need to create a product that does a job so well that it can't be ignored. You can't release a product that is in any way inferior to the other products you're competing with. And releasing a product on brand alone doesn't work anymore. And secondly, you have to know the audience for that product, and the product needs to fulfill a need that the audience has. And this can't just be any need. This has to be something that blows the customer out of the water. And remember, something as simple as price can do that. So again, what does this thing offer? Okay, and we're going to make this quick. I've got a couple things to get out of the way before we do any comparisons or tests. The first thing is the self-noise. This thing weighs in at 15 dBA weighted, and the signal-to-noise ratio is 79 dB. Both of which are not great for this type of microphone at this price, and it's kind of surprising from Shure. To add on to this, the initial release of the self-noise was listed at 17 dBA weighted, and it was later changed to 15 dB. Either way, whichever one it is, both of those numbers impact the price to performance, and we'll have to circle around to that in a bit. Okay, let's do the off-axis rejection of the SM4. This is me speaking about 6 inches away from the front of the microphone. Now I'm just going to swing it around to the side of the microphone, and you're going to notice the drop off. This is from the side of the microphone from about 6 inches away, and we're going to roll it around to the rear of the microphone from about 6 inches away. And one more time, we're just going to swing it back around to the front, and you can hear the voice kind of pop back in there. And this is from the front of the microphone. Now let's talk plosives. And I have noticed some of my plosives getting through when I'm facing close on, and I think it's due to the size of this pop filter. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Again, it is good, but I think when I'm talking off to the side, sometimes some of the air is getting past the sides there. I'm not sure. Now we'll talk proximity on the SM4. And this is an interesting one because usually with microphones with built-in pop filters like this one, it stops you from getting too close to the microphone as this one does. So you don't really get that full proximity even when you're right on top of it, quote unquote. But if you want to hear what it sounds like, this is me right on top, and all of the proximity and plosives all in one neat little package. Now let's talk handling, and I did note this earlier when I said that the dual capsule design they use is intended to reduce handling noise and the plosives, and you will notice that as I knock this about, I'm not being friendly to this microphone right now, you're not getting... There's no resonance whatsoever, and you're barely getting any of those hits coming through as well. And that's just because of that dual capsule design. It's brilliant. I love the lack of handling noise on this. So if you're doing a podcast with this thing or you're moving it around, you're not hearing all those little movements. Okay, now we have comparisons. We're going to start out with the AKG P120 up against the Shure SM4, and this is what it sounds like as I go between them. I also want to point out that this AKG P120 has both EQ switches as well as a roll-off switch, so that is a difference between these two microphones. But what do you think as I go back and forth between them? And I got to stop touching that cable. What do you think as I go back and forth between them? This being the SM4 and this being the AKG P120. Okay, now we have the Shure SM4 up against the Lewitt LCT 440. And this is what it sounds like as I go between these two microphones. Again, built-in shock mount on the LCT 440, much like the SM4. What do you think as I go back and forth between these two microphones? This, the Shure SM4, and this, the LCT 440. Okay, and let's finish this off with the big one, quite literally, the NT1 up against the Shure SM4. What do you think as I go back and forth between these two microphones? This is the big one. This is why I'm finishing with this. This is gotta be the champion, especially in that $100 to $500 mark. This is a microphone that I will recommend over and over for good reason. Price to performance. And much like the SM4, there's no controls for EQ or roll-offs on the NT1. And when you put studio mic versus studio mic, I know which one of these I'm going to be choosing. So which one do you like as I go between the SM4 and this, the NT1? Let me know down below. Okay then, let's start with the pros. This microphone does sound good, especially for instrumentation. The design and performance of the mic for plosives and proximity, not to mention the handling noise, is fantastic, though I do notice some of my plosives getting through, as I mentioned earlier. But we have to switch to cons, and while I can say this microphone sounds good on instruments, it's also tuned in a way to not necessarily flatter everyone or everything. Shure is calling this mix-ready audio, and while it's definitely not flat, not everything you record is going to want this profile on it either. There's a reason microphones are lauded for being flat, and even when they're not, mics like the LCT 440 have character, not just a bunch of rolled off frequencies and boosted highs. Which is interesting when I look at the launch reviews. I keep hearing things like a really tight and controlled low end. I honestly think it's missing a lot of that low end, and well, if you want to record something with a deep and rich low end, well, perhaps this isn't the studio mic for you. Or maybe you want to record something with a lot of airy highs, or maybe a sibilant voice. Oh my goodness. Maybe this isn't the studio mic for you. And yes, this is kind of tough for me, because when you swing back to that conversation about the market and who the competition is for this microphone, This thing doesn't even make it out of the under $200 tier, and this thing's more expensive than that. Not to mention that price to performance from earlier. Remember what I said about being a market disruptor? You can't release something that is in any way inferior to the competition, and the NT1 alone is a way better option and dollar for dollar a better buy in almost every respect. And hey, by the way, it also comes with the studio kit, not to mention the LCT 440 in its showing, and even the AKG offerings. There's a bunch of microphones that I would pick up before this one. And perhaps that's why this mic is lacking any movement online. Maybe that's why no one is really talking about it. And honestly, I can't say I like it on my voice whatsoever. Now, if you're a fan, I'll have links below. But if you want to try out some other options, I'm going to have those linked down below as well. So, cheers guys, and thanks for watching.